So when we left off before, we were able to change states from an idle state into a patrol state and then back to an idle state after 10 seconds. But right now our character or our enemy runs off our platform, so we will need to add some functionality so that our player can turn around. So what I did was that I added some, well, in the original project I added some edges to each platform so that the enemy knows when he gets to an edge and he needs to turn around. So we'll need to click on the create button and go to create empty and rename this to edge. And maybe to clean up a little here, we can actually create a new empty object and call this world, and then add everything that has something to do with the world underneath this world object here, so we can collapse it. Same goes for the black background. Yeah, and the large platform, medium platform. There we go. Okay, so let's have an edge here, and our edge needs a collider. So click on the edge, click on the add component, and click on box collider 2D. So we will actually make a point that the enemy collides with, and when he collides with it, he changes direction. So set it as trigger, and let's see where it is. It's kind of hard to see right here because we have the background. So maybe go to the background and disable it for now, and then go back to the edge and move it to the corner down here so that the enemy can collide with it when she runs. Duplicate the edge and move it all the way to the left. Then just rename it to edge as well, so it doesn't have the name edge1 and edge. And then we can tag them as edge by going to tags, click add tag, click on the little plus button and write edge. When we have added the edge tag, we'll need to click on both of them, click the tag here and click edge. There we go. So now we have two edges, or an edge in each end of the platform, and the enemy knows his boundaries now. So we will need to react on this somehow. So basically we'll need to call the onTrigger enter inside our patrol state here. So in here we'll have to make sure that we change our direction if we hit an edge. So basically we say if other.tag equals edge, then we say enemy.change direction, and this will make us change our direction. Let's see if we added functionality for this, and we already added the functionality for change direction inside our character. So let's save this and go back into our game. Or wait a minute, I'm not sure if we are calling our, let's see, our onTrigger enter anywhere. So go to your enemy and find onTrigger enter. We don't have it yet, so make it, write void onTrigger enter 2D collider 2D other, and in here we call current state dot onTrigger enter, and we give it other. So this onTrigger enter is going to be called on the enemy script because it's a mono behavior from character, and this one is going to call the current state's onTrigger enter. So the reason that we made this structure is because every single state can have some different some different triggers or different collision functions. The reason that we're using these states is also to avoid lots of if statements. If we didn't have the states, we would have already filled up our update with different things and so on. So this will clear it up a little because we use a state pattern. So let's give it a try. It is a trigger, and let's see, our enemy has a rigid body on her. Yeah, and we have this. Okay, so let's try to see what happens. The enemy is just standing, and let's see, she runs now, and then she changes direction when she hits the edge, and she runs backwards, and then she idles for 5 seconds, and she starts moving forward again, I hope. And then she changes direction again. So now we already have the patrol state from moving back and forth like this. So the next thing we would like to add is the ability to maybe see the player and then follow the player around to attack him. So to make the enemy follow the player, we will need to add a sight to him, because the enemy needs some kind of eyesight so that he can spot the player, and when he spots the player he will need to go after him and try to kill him. So we need to add a new script, and we call this enemy sight. And when we create that, we will need to add the sight to the enemy. And basically the sight is just a collision box. So click create empty, add it underneath the enemy, and rename it to sight. And add this enemy sight script to it, to this new object, and then we'll have to click add component and get a box collision. And then we need to make it a little larger. So this is size. It's basically like, I don't know how far she should be able to see. Move it a little up like this, then move it to the right. There we go, and move it a little up as well. There. So this is basically her field of view. This area here. You can make it larger, smaller, or whatever you want to. I'm just gonna go with this size, so she won't be able to see this far here. I've on purpose left it not that far behind her, so that she will not be able to see the player when he walks behind her, unless he gets too close. Keep in mind that you should put it a little over the edge here, so that it's easier for her to turn if the player tries to jump over her, because then you will still have the collision right behind her. Okay, so this is our side. We will have to click on the script, there it is, and in here we'll have to add some functionality for the sight of the player or enemy. And to be able to follow something, we will need to have a target on our enemy. So go to your enemy and make a property called GameObject and call it target. So this is going to be our target. This target will need to be set from within our site. So if we jump back to the site script, then we'll have to make an enemy first of all. So make a private enemy, because the site needs a reference to the enemy that it belongs to. We can do this in the script, but let's just set it in the expector. It's going to be easier. So just make a serialized field. And then we have to go in start and say if, oh sorry, not in start, we have to make an onTrigger enter, of course. So delete these two and make an void onTrigger enter 2D and collider 2D other. And in here we'll have to say if other.tag equals player. So if it's the player we see, well, then we have to check if he's dead. So if, well, actually we can't do that yet. We don't have any indication of him being dead. So let's do that later. Then we have to say enemy.target equals other.GameObject. So if the enemy sees the player now, she will make him her target so that she can follow him. But if the player runs away from the enemy, then we need to detarget him. So void onTrigger exit 2D collider 2D other. So this function is called when the player exits the site of the enemy, and when he exits the site of the enemy by running too far away or jumping down on another platform, we will have to say if other.tag equals player, then we say enemy.target equals null. So then we remove the target again. So now we have a site that has a reference to an enemy. When we see a player, when the player collides with that green box, then we acquire him as a target. When he exits the green box again, we set the target as null. So save and jump back to Unity, select the enemy, and let's see, we have we need to add the script to it. So take the collision trigger and it's not collision trigger. Take the enemy side and add it to the side on the side script here, and you can see it asks for an enemy now. So take the enemy itself that the side sits on and move it onto this empty spot here, so that the side has a reference to the enemy, so that it can actually set the target for this enemy up here. So now that we have the ability to spot a player, we will need to make sure that our player is tagged as a player. So click on your player and make sure that the tag here is set as player, because that's the tag we are looking for inside our script. Okay, so now we will need to add a state to make the player move. So let's just use the range state for now, and then we can later add it to the melee state as well. Inside the range state, we will have to make sure that we can move whenever we see the player. So in the execute function, we make an if statement that says is enemy, and of course we need to make a reference to the enemy. So up here, make a private enemy, and this dot enemy equals enemy. So if enemy dot target isn't null, so if the enemy has a target, we will have to say enemy dot move. So now we are moving, or now we are trying to move if we have a target here in the range function. But we still need to go back to idle when we don't have a target anymore. So let's do that later. Let's do that later so you can see how it works. So now we can move, but we're not looking at the player yet. So we need to go to, for example, our idle state, and inside the execute function of our idle state, we'll have to switch to a new state if we see the enemy. So let's see, we go to execute here, and we say if enemy dot target isn't null, then we say enemy dot change state into new patrol state. Okay, so why don't we just go into the range state from here or whatever? Because the patrol state, it's moving him already, and the patrol state will then move on to the range state if that is necessary. Basically this will also make sure later that we can go into the melee state. So right now we are simply gonna go directly into the patrol state. Inside the patrol state, we will have to make sure that we can go further on into the range state. So if we go to the patrol state here, and we say after we move, if enemy dot target isn't null, then we say current state enemy dot current change state new ranged state. So later we need to check if we are in the right range, but we don't have the range yet. So we will just go into the range state right away. That's also why the idle state looks a little weird, because we go into the patrol state right here. We will go to a range state later, as far as I remember, but we don't have the throw range right now. And when we add that, this will make more sense. So to sum up what we just did, if we are idling and we acquire a target, then we go into the patrol state to start running. Inside the patrol state, here, we check if we have a target. If we have a target, we move on to the range state. Okay. So inside the range state, we don't have anything special. We are just moving right now, but we need to make sure that he follows the player. But let's take that after we've tested this. So let's zoom out. Let's take the player here and put him down here. And the player is just idling right now. And let's see if he sees. And now, okay, I can't move into the collision box and it pushes me away. So it needs to be a trigger, of course, because LC has a force field that just pushes me off. That's a pretty cool effect, but that's not what we want to do. So click on the side and set it as a trigger right here. Okay. So let's try to jump to the platform. Give me 1 sec, because I think I want to try to make the enemy idle for a longer time so we can test it better. So go to the idle state, go to idle duration and set it as 10, for example. There we go. And then we can jump back and test it. So let's test it out and see if it works. If we play the game again and jump up here, then he's patrolling and then he stops patrolling, and I can see I get some reference exceptions here. Yeah, okay, that makes sense. I managed to add 2 enemy side scripts to my side. Of course, it only needs run script, so let's just remove the top one here so that we only have 1 script. So let's see if it works now. So when the player enters the side of the enemy, he will start running towards me, and then he passes me and runs out. And of course he stops now because he doesn't have a target, and we haven't made sure he turns around to look at the player. But for now we know that he can actually start moving, and if we go in here again, he will start moving again. There we go. So inside the range state, we will have to make sure that he goes back into idle if he loses his target, so he doesn't stand and run in the spot like he just did. So jump into the range state, and underneath our if enemy target isn't null, we'll have to make an else statement that says enemy.change state into new idle state. So then we create an idle state if we runs past us. So let's see what happens now. Let's just open the scene here so we can see he's idling right now. And if I jump up here and she sees me, then she runs towards me. And when she passes me, she should go back to idle, as you can see here. Now she's just idling right there behind me. But of course she will need to turn towards me whenever I pass her or she passes me. So to fix this, we can make a new function, and this function should be inside the enemy script. So inside the enemy script, we should make a function called lookAtTarget. Let's just make it after update. That's not where I want to click. There. So private void lookAtTarget. And if our target isn't null, then we need to determine which direction we need to look at. So first of all, we make a float called x direction, and it's equal to the target.transform.position.x minus the transform.position.x of our enemy. So now we know the direction, the x direction, because it's the target's direction minus my own. Then I get a direction. Either it's larger than 0 or less than 0. If it returns, if x deer is less than 0, well, then it's on the left of me. And if it's more than 0, then it's to the right for me. So let's make an if statement. Set x direction if it's larger than 0 and I'm facing right. Or if my x direction is larger than 0 and I'm not facing right, then I need to change direction. And this lookAtTarget function basically just needs to be called inside my update function. So up here in, where did update go? Down there. Let's just place lookAtTarget underneath update so it doesn't go over it. And then we say lookAtTarget. So there we go. Now the character should keep looking at the player at all times. So let's see what happens. And the target, I mean the enemy, of course. So she moves towards me, and I go to the other direction, and she starts running this way. And now, of course, when we stand on top of each other, she keeps doing this. But this will be fixed when we start attacking, of course. Because right now she would just be standing and attacking me instead. But as you can see, she can now follow me around on the map, no matter where I go, as you can see here. So that is basically what I wanted to add in this video. In the next video we will start adding the functionality so that the player can actually attack or the enemy can attack the player. I keep mixing those two up, but we will make sure that the enemy can attack the player as well. Yeah, if you haven't done it already, remember to subscribe, like my Facebook, and follow me on Twitter. And remember, you can support me on Patreon or by downloading this project or any of my other projects. Yes, let's move on to the next video.